There will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
Bitcoin is punk rock. Deal with it.
You split, we bankrupt you.
Do you use Lightning wallets to pay for things or not?
No.
Bitcoin Cash would be seen as more of a threat to the United States hegemony than Bitcoin.
Miles Town, what's your favorite kind of money?
Bitcoin Cash.
Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast. Following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency, going to number one. A few people seem confused about that this week on Reddit, but we'll talk about that later. It's number one or bust for us. This is episode number 38, Collaborate to Accumulate, and the mega meme review featuring NeonDaThal, who is or NeonDaThal, I don't know, maybe you can explain to me the best pronunciation, but it is Sunday, the 30th of January, 2022. My guest is a BCH scene regular, a content creator in the BCH scene, and actually the progenitor of this title, Collaborate to Accumulate, which I thought was an absolutely fantastic BCH slogan. We will discuss that in more practical terms as well on the show too. But welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Thanks very much. Brilliant, mate. Really good. Great to be here, and looking forward to having a good chat of this beautiful day on a Sunday here in the UK, in Australia, in the US as well.
I'm in the UK too, mate. I'm in England, but
are you joking?
Yeah. No.
I had no idea.
Yeah. I've been in the UK this whole time, in London, and now I'm in Bournemouth on the south coast. So getting some of that fantastic British weather in. But I'm glad to be here because the lockdowns have fallen apart at the moment. So that's great. Anyway, just give us a bit of background though. I don't actually know, how long have you been involved with cryptocurrency? What was your story with that? How did you get involved, and how did you find your way onto BCH?
Yeah, so not really that long, probably only a couple of years. I've been in business for quite a few years, and specifically in hospitality. So I was running pubs, bars, restaurants. So kind of I got the inside kind of knowledge of how businesses work, how customers think, and all of that sort of thing, really. So I then went on to mobile apps and created an app that was a ratings app for hospitality businesses. And then within the last couple of years, then I kind of moved into crypto a little bit then with the boom. With a lot of other people, I just got caught up in the wave. But my love has always been what makes businesses tick, why do customers do what they do, and the science around that. So that's what led me really to BCH through Bitcoin. And then I realized that there was an alternative to Bitcoin that was actually able to be used as money, because I came in realizing that I was playing a little bit with Ethereum, a little bit with Bitcoin, and just realizing that, Christ, this is costing me an arm and a leg. As a new user, I don't see what the hype is. And because it's costing me too much money to use. And then that's when I led in then to seeing Bitcoin Cash and realized that there was, at that time, I didn't know that it was kind of a fork of Bitcoin. And so it's been a learning journey for me these last couple of years. And so I'm all in now. I'm kind of a real lover of Bitcoin Cash, that it can be a complete alternative to the corrupt kind of the cash system that we've got at the moment. It just replaces it. And that's the beauty of it. And there's nothing else out there that does the same sort of thing. So that's where I am at the moment. And so I'm now kind of fully involved in trying to further that cause and trying to find new innovative ways to bring other people into it as well.
Yeah.
So
that's one of the most amazing things about Bitcoin. And I think there's going to be a lot of history written about it, and also a lot of historical revisionism, definitely, because Bitcoin was almost, it's in some ways kind of unbelievable that Satoshi published, the white paper and wrote some of this early stuff in 2009, 2010, and part of 2011 before kind of vanishing. But here we are 13 years since Satoshi published the white paper, and there's huge chunks of the planet that still haven't got it. There's huge chunks of the planet who know about cryptocurrency, even heavily involved in crypto. It still hasn't clicked to them, and Satoshi had it all laid out right from the very start. So it just goes to show how long it takes to kind of filter out to everybody. But I think as the scene gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, Bitcoin Cash, it's just such an unstoppable dark horse, really, because like you're saying, new people come into the scene, high fee chains or different stuff like NFTs or whatever, it's maybe you can get a bit involved in it, a bit excited about it, but the real paradigm shift is once you think, wait, a separate economy, not some side casino, but kind of the real deal. And that's what we're trying to get everybody to understand. But all the initial momentum of that was just lost in the fork, really. And that's another thing that people are never going to understand. Like if there had not been a fork, Bitcoin by now, Bitcoin would be taken over. It would be massive. But people who say, oh yeah, it's still big. It is big. But the unseen road that could have been taken if the community hadn't split, you think all the money that went into Ethereum, all these other coins, if all of that was in Bitcoin and the network effect was compounding on itself there, it would be titanic if that message hadn't been lost as like it could be a real alternative currency. But anyway, we're here, so got to just crack on with it. And this time around, do it better, which I think we are so far, because now if you're in Bitcoin Cash, there's no excuse, really.
Go back now. I just wanted a quick point I wanted to make was again being a relatively new user, is that what Bitcoin failed to do was to get the masses involved, which was getting the people involved who were at the grassroots level. So the people who were really struggling with government tyranny and that sort of thing, that's what it failed to do, and that's what would have created the mass adoption that was necessary at the time. And because that didn't happen at the time, it left a gaping void for those people in developing countries that maybe don't have other options. And so the issue with that then is that only a small minority at the kind of in developed countries really use Bitcoin, really play with it, and have the economic background to be able to use it, really. So it's only a minority at the moment that can actually use the top kind of your Bitcoins, your Ethereums, and the top coins. So it's those lower grassroots levels that we need to be targeting, really, for the old Bitcoin, as it were.
Jet, were you going to jump in there? No. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting point, right? Because one of the things that did happen, very early, it was finding some of those fringe use cases, right? Obviously, famously, it was used on the Silk Road, and a lot of people who had troubles with the law with drugs and stuff like that. It was also very popular with like sex workers and stuff. Initially, it was getting there, but the thing is, just 3 transactions per second only goes so far. So even though the community did explode, and sure, there was a lot of people who were into it for ideology or whatever. Yeah, you're right that the fact that it just didn't scale meant that it couldn't really continue expanding into all those areas where it's needed most, and instead it's kind of got diverted off into rich people gambling, or people who already have a good quality of life and stuff. So that kind of revolutionary aspect to it is lost. And you see that whenever you talk to somebody who says like, but why would I need Bitcoin? And it's kind of like, well, because you're not the initial market. Maybe you don't need it, but you will once everybody else is using it. But we got to get it to those people first. And if you can't understand that process, then maybe you'll just have to wait to be involved. All right, we got to crack on. So
yep, sure.
Podcast news. We'll talk about all this in the show as well too. So we've got the I just wanted to point out the platform expansion. So like I promised on the show last week, I've been hard at work trying to expand things. So the show is now on Odyssey, BitChute, Rumble, and Gaze.cash. We've got more than half the videos up there. Going to keep adding all of those. I'm going to put all the links in the description and stuff. And I'm going to release the show on those platforms a day or two earlier than YouTube to encourage people to migrate onto these other channels, because obviously I want to spread out my audience onto all of these different channels, so that there's less chance that YouTube just gets a bit salty about this podcast like it has about 1,000 other things recently. and we hit the ban list. So yeah, if you're somebody who has not checked out any of these other alternatives, maybe give them a bit of a look. They are definitely relative to YouTube, it's a bit of a different vibe, right? They are a bit unrefined. There's a lot of kind of weird content on there that you might not see on YouTube these days, but especially for very young listeners, like anybody who wasn't around in the early 2000s when YouTube was kicking off, and it was like that. There was lots of weird stuff that you wouldn't see, or just it wasn't as polished, and there was just lots of home creators with kind of fringe views and all kinds of stuff that was really interesting. And it wasn't all like sort of pre-packaged and well produced like it is now on YouTube. Yeah, maybe give those sites a try. You can always go back to YouTube if you don't like it, but you might stumble on something interesting. All right, and then we got the price. So the bear, I didn't update the slides. I said bear market meltdown continues, but really it's actually stabilized a bit this week. It's had a bit of a rally. It's kind of come back into it a little bit. Bitcoin Cash $297.40. One BTC buys 128 BCH, which I think is the lowest point we've had on this show, which is kind of interesting. I think the previous low was about 118 to 1, but I'm actually not worried about that because I think BCH's chances are looking better than ever, as we're going to see on this very show. But yeah, do you follow the price all that much, or do you just kind of ignore it? How do you handle the volatility? Every guest on this show gives a bit of a take on how they impact with that, and especially as you were saying, you started with the kind of being economically concerned about the fees and stuff. Yeah, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really look at the price of BCH that much. I just keep one little eye on it all the time, but just because it's not as much of a concern. I don't see it being massively volatile either. That it's to a point of I don't know. It just doesn't concern me as much as use case really does. So no, it's not a big deal for me really. Not that bothered.
That's good. And that's the interesting thing about it. That's been a bit of a theme on some of the last few shows as well, is the more you use it as a currency, the less the volatility is a problem. The volatility is a really big problem if you're expecting it to be an investment, because
and if you do nothing else, yeah.
And if that, and that's, and I recently I've been watching, you can kind of see that this narrative divergence between the BCH and the BTC side, because if you look up any content about BTC, any of their podcasts or anything, it's like price talk for like 2 hours. It's like, is it gone up? Has it gone down? Are the banks buying in? What are the hedge funds doing? What's our stock to flow model predicting how rich we're going to be next year? That's all they've got to talk about in large. Even it's like El Salvador is adopting, so that's pumping the price because they're buying. I don't know. It's just crazy. Like obviously I put it first on this show every week. We talk about the price, but it's usually like 2 minutes or 30 seconds, and then it's on with the rest. So just kind of interesting to see.
It's to be honest, that's a cultural thing as well. Like again, it's a Western cultural thing of making money from nothing. So it's very much kind of, we want the least work you can do to make the most money. And it's a very, again, it's like a very sloth thing, isn't it? It's greed. It's all the 7 deadly sins: greed, sloth. You just want to be lazy and make, as I say, passive income. And which is okay, it's nice, but that's not how the real world works. And the majority of the world is just about trading. And I buy things from you, you buy things from me. So it's kind of, they're almost two different worlds, really.
Yeah,
watching prices and then actually trading.
Exactly. And I think that's something that a lot of people undervalue as well in the difference with the BTC and the BCH split, is that fundamentally the technology was kind of the trigger point or the flash point or the kind of the casualty. But the reality is, people who think that the Bitcoin BTC community could, like they say, what if they just raise the block size? What if they realize you guys were right there? Firstly, that's never going to happen for a number of reasons. But secondly, you can't undo years and years and years of teaching people things, of the mentality, the vibe in that community, what they're focused on, spinning up grassroots adoption stuff. It's hard work. It takes a lot of time. So even though they are a much bigger community by total people, at the moment, even if there's just no way, it would take them 4 or 5 years to catch up to where BCH is, just in terms of their narrative of how people are thinking through things and the priorities that they have, and how many different assumptions they would need to abandon and rebuild from scratch. And that's the ultimate decentralization, is the thinking of people in your community is so once it's going in one direction, it's very, very hard to change, for better or for worse. So as time goes on and they get more and more involved in this financialized speculation mindset, just the less and less competitive they are against the communities that are still focused on adoption, like BCH, like Dash, like Monero to some extent, right? So definitely interesting. And then we got the transactions, so still being kind of for about 45,000 transactions, just kind of flat. It's been actually a little while since BCH has been this stable in the number of transactions. So it seems like in the bear market, everybody just, the people who need to transact are transacting, and nobody's really getting too excited about sending it back and forth to exchanges, or there's been no major new app launches or anything. Kim.com kind of failed to deliver and all that. So yeah, that's kind of been pretty flat too. And with the activity on chain, though, this is the interesting part in comparison, in contrast to the other chain where it's just been flat, the BCH volume has dropped off. It's been for most of last year in the sort of 3 to 5 billion per day range, and it has now dropped off to be in the kind of couple of 100 million. The interesting thing about this, though, is that it hasn't changed the number of transactions really. So it has only been a small amount of very high volume transactions that have all disappeared. And the other thing is that this has actually happened a couple of times before, and it usually came back after a couple of weeks. So it seems like there is some big player. I sort of speculate that it might be 2 exchanges that kind of settle up between themselves in BCH or something like that. That seems like the actual grassroots adoption of the scene is completely divorced from that, and that's maybe 200 million or 300 million a day of actual transacting, and then there's like 3.5 billion which kind of gets added on by just this one big player in 10 or 20 transactions of a couple million each day, and that seemingly without explanation seems to just drop in and out at different times. So
well, you can actually see. I don't know if you follow the BCH whale account on Twitter.
Yeah, I do follow it. Yeah,
but I noticed the other day exactly that happening, and I actually questioned that. I was thinking, why is this happening? I think it was around $2 to $3 million, almost. I don't know. It was just regularly, just one after another. And so, like you say, maybe that's what it is.
But the thing is, I am obsessively following BCH all the time and stuff, but there's no you would think that there would be some like explanation, like the BCH scene is still small enough that it should be like, oh, it's this company, it's Kraken or something like that. I'm just surprised that some of the blockchain wizards out there haven't come up with, look, it's this guy. Yeah. Or but it seems quite unrelated to the price really, and also quite unrelated to the number of transactions, quite unrelated to the hype. It just kind of comes and goes a little bit. But I'll tell you what, it'll be kicking off in BCH the second this cent in BCH number starts going up, and it's not that. As soon as it's not that, and it's just people $5 here, $5 there, really starting to snowball, and this graph kicking off, that's when I'll know we're definitely winning, and we're really starting to crush it, I think. So we'll see. Hopefully that builds up gradually, then suddenly, right? So you got SmartBCH. I don't know, do you want to jump in on that, or I kind of cut you off there? Oh,
me?
All good? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
sorry.
no. So sorry. Yeah, no. The so SmartBCH is another. I see it as something kind of different. I see it as the savings accounts of BCH really now. Is kind of the idea behind it is that if you do want to speculate a little, then go ahead and do it without paying exorbitant fees, and do it on SmartBCH. And there's just so much going on at the moment the new multi-chain bridge on MistSwap is just amazing, just incredible. And so things that I don't know, it just feels that things that are happening under the chains and are having so many problems, Solana almost breaking down completely, just aren't happening with Bitcoin Cash or with SmartBCH. And so it just works. And I know that's kind of what people keep saying. It just works. It's kind of a slogan now. It just works. So it's interesting that the masses aren't cottoning onto this. I don't know if it's a blind loyalty to the other projects and it's just refusal to give in. And we can't be beaten by this little side project. I don't know what it is. I don't know, but it's SmartBCH is flying at the moment. All the NFTs that have come out, and it's great. It's a lot of fun. People can create their own tokens and put them out there. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the one thing that has been kind of missing a little bit is BCH scene is just always struggled from a kind of a marketing and an advertising kind of point of view, and just attracting those new users, and especially as in the most recent surge, that has become one of the highest priority things as to ranking up your coin is getting like that mass awareness going. And it sort of makes sense, I think, because on one hand, Bitcoin benefits basically from the default marketing of being, the number one most recognizable brand and being the most discussed. That sort of network effect of marketing is going for Bitcoin. And then Ethereum somewhat benefits from a little bit less, but they're a bit less known anyway. But now they're the second biggest, obviously. So they've also got a bit of that. And then all the other coins tend to be actually quite a bit more centralized, right? There's some huge pools of money from some big investors who have, put in 50 million and they've bought up all 70% of the supply or whatever. So once it pumps, they throw a couple million into getting it hype. Then it kicks off a bit that, refunds them a ton of money in their initial coin investments. And then they can also just fund some more marketing. But BCH has neither of those. In fact, it has like an anti-brand in the sense that you need to do extra explanation about it rather than just, oh, wow, it's just Bitcoin or it's just this coin. You need to explain, well, that was the history and this happened and that happened and that happened, which is good. I actually like that effort to it because it means that the BCH community is very, very educated compared to, if you had to do a crypto quiz on the history of crypto, like the BCH community would slaughter any other community in terms of their average score on that test. So that's good. You get very dedicated, community. But on the other hand, it does mean we need to work extra hard, and we don't have that centralized pool of VC money. So that's another area, I think, as the price starts to turn around, as things get a bit kicking off in BCH, it will be unstoppable once it truly gets rolling, because this is a community operating on scraps. And once you just boost everybody's wealth, like the way the Bitcoin BTC community are now, it's almost unbelievable. They've made so much money in their price appreciation, and they're not doing any better. They're wasting the golden, goose that they had. And I'm sure their money is slowly bleeding away as they all, you don't see a lot of super thriving businesses and stuff coming out of it. In fact, just the core devs are all sort of slowly bailing out, and this, that, and the other. So I did just want to highlight the SmartBCH development. So TangoSwap recently released SmartSwap, which aggregates all the dexes, so you can make one trade from Mist to BCH, and it splits it across the exchanges so that it's more so that your trade is more efficient and you get a better price. MistSwap have come out with a multi-chain bridge that combines SideShift.ai, which lets you swap coins for other coins in the crypto system, plus this hop.cash, which is one of the SmartBCH bridges. So you can go from any of the other major coins, BTC, ETH, BSC, AVAX, Doge, XMR, Solana, etc., onto BCH, and it's much more fluid. People don't need to learn all the details about getting on the hop.cash and doing all those things. And the SmartBCH bridge, the SHA-Gate, coming out in May. I saw there was some code going into that. I didn't review it all in great detail, but it's still being churned out. And the point I really wanted to make as well about this was that even though it's a small-ish scene and we've got a small-ish amount of devs, they're targeting the right things, because the MISSWAP bridge is a classic, right? Where it's combining SideShift plus hop.cash to make it a lot easier. And that's the way development works. You build one piece, then you build a second piece, then you build a third piece that links those two, and then you build a fourth piece that adds into that link. And then that's how the network effect kind of builds. So all of this sort of dev infrastructure that is being made right now for SmartBCH means if there is a huge surge of users, then it will be ready. It will be ready for them, right? You don't want to get a huge surge of users and then have them be expecting all these kind of tools and systems that don't exist yet. But you're right, it does just work. There's been very few, if any. There was a couple of rug pulls at the start, but actually nothing major. And yeah, you're right. There hasn't been chain downtime. There hasn't been, the devs just need to fix this. There hasn't been the fees skyrocketing out of control that nobody expected. It's been unbelievably smooth, yeah.
Do you guys know, like, how the MIST token started? Because it used to be an SLP token. It was one of the first mineable SLP tokens. I think because it was some type of like contract thing, you can still mine it. And then Kazumi, who runs MistSwap, has been around for years, and they've got the Misty Lake portion of MistSwap, and there you can bridge over your mineable Mist SLP tokens for SmartBCH Mist tokens, and then there you can stake it and all that. So I think it's a one-way thing though. I think they're slowly trying to stop the SLP.
Yeah, well, I do know that MistSwap is, because when I first looked at it, I didn't know about any of this SLP stuff, but I did look at MistSwap and I was like, wow, this is cool. This is just built like it was seemingly like overnight. It just was announced, here's MistSwap, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. And then I looked into it a bit more, and it's forked from SushiSwap. So it was essentially initially like they just made a clone of this project that has been super successful on Ethereum called SushiSwap. And they just cloned it, changed the name basically to MistSwap, changed the icons, changed it to connect to the SmartBCH network. So there was a little bit of work there, but essentially the initial work, is 95% done. And you can even see the websites look the same. If you look up SushiSwap and MistSwap, you'll see the coloring's a bit different, but it's basically the same site. And that really just, I already knew in theory, okay, we can just port across a lot of this stuff from Ethereum. But when you see the huge opportunity for anybody who's a little bit of a dev, I should honestly do more of this myself. Just look into what are those projects on Ethereum, just fork the code and just update it to connect to SmartBCH and change the logo and name, and bam, you'll be kicking off if it's a proven product that people already want and use. So I think that's also contributing to the scene, growing as fast as it has, really.
So what's like, coming from a non-technical person such as myself, what's stopping that from what's stopping the adoption happening if developers do that? If developers clone a lot of the current apps and things over on Ethereum, bring them to BCH, it's cheaper, it's faster, it's more efficient. Because in the business world and in the free market, the most efficient product wins. So what is the stopping that happening currently in the cryptosphere that would stop people adopting BCH? Is it just brand and brand loyalty, or what do you think?
I think that's part of it. I would say there's two other little fly in the ointments that we've got at the moment. One is the decentralized bridge. I think that's a big, problem is at the moment, you're sort of, the whole thing is kind of resting on the precipice with CoinFlex holding the keys to the kingdom, right? So that's why a lot of people, and we'll see whether, it could be that this decentralized bridge comes out in May and like the day after, like locked BCH just freaking skyrockets, right? That might be one scenario, or it might be more of a thing like it happens, it's a big nothing, nobody really cares. But then over the next 6 to 9 months, people slowly get a bit more comfortable with it, and the money comes in. So we're sort of waiting to see on that front. But I can see that being one problem. There's probably a third problem as well. The second problem is the the bridges, but not between BCH and SmartBCH, but between BCH and like Ethereum. So obviously that's one thing that has come out this week, which helps in that respect. But there needs to be quite a bit more of that, and that's related to the third point, which is liquidity. So obviously, as with anything with money, there's network effects, and all the money is on Ethereum. So even if fees are a lot cheaper and whatever on Avalanche or on Solana or on Cardano, I don't think Cardano even really has a functioning ecosystem, to be honest, but on any of those other chains, even if their fees are, 5 cents as compared to $50, they're still struggling to attract that kind of investment. So it's really about getting the initial kickstart going. So I don't know when we're specifically going to see that in BCH. It's a combination of all those problems, but I think they all are being attacked. Like the branding is slowly getting better, and the community's forming itself with better educational resources and stuff like that. The Stargate bridge is coming out in May. The the bridges for the other coins are starting to appear, and there's a lot of devs copying in projects. So I think we're going to need a nexus point of all those things to kind of be ticked before we start seeing some real hype, probably.
Sure. Cool.
Okay, so next up we have Saint Kitts and Nevis, El Salvador 2.0 question mark, but really more like exclamation mark. In the last week, Mark Falzon has been doing a fantastic job of documenting what is happening there. So he's got this tweet here that I've got: crypto adoption is happening on St. Kitts and Nevis, where over 100 plus merchants have begun to accept Bitcoin Cash without a forced mandate like with Bitcoin in El Salvador. Very critical. During the crypto crash, no less. Wild to see and document what a difference free choice makes. So I looked it up. So St. Kitts and Nevis has a population of about 54,000 people, which is 0.00068% of the world population. It's the 211th country by world population out of 235. Mark Falzon he's been doing a killer job. So anybody that is interested, look up his Twitter, and there's just tons of stuff on there. And because of a combination of factors, obviously it's a small community. They're generally a bit more chill and relaxed. There's not as much, big government involvement and so on. It's a Caribbean island. So I guess everybody's a bit more kind of laid back and just willing to go with the flow. I'll try out this Bitcoin Cash stuff. And obviously also Roger Ver lives there, and I guess a few other BCH people probably, there's probably a bit of a local community happening. And so that's provided a bit of a seed. And just recently it's just kicked off. I'm not exactly sure what has been the flashpoint recently, but I sort of take it to mean just that it's been 1 year, this story that I've been telling, that the eCash fork happened in November of 2020, and we've now had all of 2021 where the community has just been left to settle. There's been a lot of focus on SmartBCH, but all that lack of disruption and stuff means that people in the community can start thinking about making forward progress instead of battling internally. And that sort of thing is now starting to come to fruition, and this is one example of it. So I think when you see these videos, it's just crazy. It literally looks like you can just walk down the street and every single shop will accept Bitcoin Cash. And there's a mix of the tourists, or sort of, people coming in to try Bitcoin Cash like Mark, but there's also just the locals. And that makes sense, right? Because that's the point of a network effect, is if everywhere on the street accepts it, if you go in and you buy a sandwich at one merchant, they don't really have the question of like, but what do I do with this Bitcoin Cash now? Because they know the next shop over also accepts it. So then they can go there and buy their lunch with it. And now you've got an actual real economy going. And with 50,000 people, the critical mass needed to hit this is all just kicking off is far smaller, particularly if those signs are everywhere. Those Bitcoin Cash stickers, seems like they're pretty much on every corner. Sometimes you can watch a marketing video and get the sense of like, oh, okay, you put in 3 shots and they were the 3 places on the whole island that accepted it. Like, wow, good job. But from what I can tell, it's actually like, more than hundreds of merchants, right? All accepting it. So yeah, shout out to Mark Falzon for doing all that quality documenting, and he's also running a Flip Starter too. So I'll put a link in the description. People can check that out if they want to support another year of that. But yeah, getting here on this topic, have you been watching these videos? You've been impressed by it? Or?
I think he's a great videographer, Mark. I really like his videos. He's like a proper classic YouTuber with all of his B-roll, and he's kind of making the action scenes, and he's doing great job documenting what they're doing down there. And I think what it's shown is that local adoption in creating small pockets of local economies is actually going to be, moving forward, one of the major ways to grow the mass adoption across the world. I mean, if you can get your small local area all accepting Bitcoin Cash, then, and everybody, as you say, when you receive money, then you say, well, where can I spend it? Well, I can go and buy my cigarettes, my bread, my milk, whatever I need to buy. And everybody knows that they can spend it. But then what happens is if you then travel to another part of the world, so if you're in Bitcoin Cash City in Australia, and then you go across to St. Kitts, and now you can also use it here. And they'll also take your Bitcoin Cash. And then you move down to Venezuela, and then you've realized that you're in Caracas, and and that's how it's going to begin to, when you have all of these pockets spring up, that's how the mass adoption is going to happen, when people realize that they can use it anywhere. But it's going to start with those local economies, I think. That's going to be the key.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It's because it's a huge win. Even though it seems like maybe it's not such a big deal, it is actually quite a big win. If you can just land, you get off the plane, and you don't have that annoying step that anybody who's ever been traveling knows, where it's like, oh God, I got to go stop and exchange my money, or I have to. But when you're planning in the lead up to your trip, okay, I need to convert a couple $100 ahead of time, or whatever. I mean, it's not a critical pain point. Most people, especially at the moment, are not traveling most of the time, so it's not a super big deal. But I agree that if it gets a bit of a reputation going, that like this idea of it being a world currency, that you could just go anywhere and you could spend it with everyone, as more and more of those hotspots start, people will naturally, I think first they will end up in one of those places and see, wait a second, this is I can imagine somebody going to St. Kitts just on a holiday who had no idea about any of this, flying in, landing, and just suddenly being like, oh, this shop accepts Bitcoin, like that's that green sticker, okay, kind of. So, and then at the third place, and by the third day, they're sort of thinking, wait a second, the guy in front of me in the line, he paid with Bitcoin Cash, and then I saw somebody else paying here, and like, yeah, it is absolutely everywhere. It's on billboards, and like all these things are kind of happening. So I feel like, it will be. Maybe it'll start getting media coverage at a certain point. Like, look, because there has been those stories. There was loads of those stories about El Salvador, right? El Salvador adopting Bitcoin, and people were kind of trying to force it, like, oh, you can pay with with Bitcoin. But I saw shout out to another content creator, The Nudge. He's been in El Salvador, and he had a Twitter post where he was talking about, you can spend Bitcoin, but it's kind of difficult. You kind of got to force it a bit. Some places are not willing to really accept it in practice, even if in theory they should. And the Lightning payments sometimes don't work, and they have their own weird apps, and with the Chivo wallet and Bitcoin Beach. And it's like, well, the Bitcoin.com wallet, it just works. Anybody can use it and find out in 5 seconds that it's great, So yeah, I think that's really, it's absolutely incredible to see. And if we can start some more of those little local pockets, the more the better. Really,
I guess also the marketing budget's going to be more localized as well. So if we take it that maybe Roger Vere's, if he's doing a lot of marketing out there himself and putting money into that, it's going to cost him less money to do that and to start locally in St. Kitts. And the same with anybody else who's doing the same thing with stickers, with billboards, with everything else in their local area. It spreads out the cost of that marketing, rather than saying, right, we're going to do a global marketing that maybe isn't going to hit directly to what we want to hit. And so again, it's a more efficient way of marketing, I think. But I think the distinction between St. Kitts and El Salvador couldn't be more stark. It's cryptocurrency was created for the separation of money and state. And now in El Salvador, you have state dictating using the cryptocurrency. So it kind of doesn't fly with me, really, that the state is telling that you have to use this cryptocurrency. So I do think that El Salvador is suffering from an imposition from the global elites. I think it's a bit of a petri dish. People are doing science experiments over there and seeing how much the local population will take with the central banking digital currencies on the horizon. They want to see what El Salvador will do. What will the local population do before they try and implement theirs in other parts of the world? So it's a bit of for me, it's a bit of a worry what's happening in El Salvador. So we'll see how that develops. But the organic nature of what's happening in St. Kitts gives us a lot of hope for what we can do without having to ask for permission from the gods above, as it were.
Yeah, it's a clash for the ages, really. The whole story of cryptocurrency history. The way I always think about it is, BTC is top down and BCH is bottom up, right? So it literally is the 1% versus the 99%, and we're gonna run it live and see who comes out on top, So that's it. It's personified, or not really personified, but it's embodied in this difference between El Salvador with an authoritarian regime putting in mandates and things and developing their own closed ecosystem apps which you can't use from outside and stuff like that, versus the opposite. And I think that just that lower friction of just doing it the permissionless way that cryptocurrency was designed has meant that even with a fraction of the resources and attention, it seems like it's going gangbusters in St. Kitts, whereas there's just been a litany of problems and disasters, and probably more on the horizon from El Salvador, really. So I guess we'll keep an eye on that as it kind of plays out. But it's so amazing to see, and maybe even we'll edit into the VOD one of these videos so that people can see. But just, it's amazing when you just see 20-30 clips just one after another of somebody just buying something with BCH all in the same spot. It's kind of crazy. All right, so that's a bit of collaborate to accumulate going on there. And then we've also got your new project that you're launching called the Crypto Directory, which is in this exact spirit of collaborate to accumulate, and the idea of everybody just increasing their prosperity by trading directly with other people for Bitcoin Cash or other cryptocurrencies. So give me the breakdown of what is this project? How did you come to the idea? And I guess, is it live yet? I don't know. Fill me in.
No, not quite yet. This is an exclusive for the Bitcoin Cash podcast. So,
oh man, there you go. You heard it here first.
It'll be live probably in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, so the idea. I mean, I was thinking, okay, so great. So I'm all in on Bitcoin Cash. I want to spend wherever I can spend. I want to know what restaurants, what products I can go and buy locally or online, so where can I do that? So I thought, there needs to be almost a marketplace, a directory where you can go and you can search by location, you can search by category, and as any directory works. And I just think it's very helpful. So, for example, if you're looking at traveling to the Caribbean, and so you hear about, okay, so I've got some Bitcoin Cash, I've just heard about St. Kitts, I'm going to also check out the other islands before I book my holiday. Where's accepting more? And you can go and have a look at these businesses. So the businesses have their photos there. They have some information about what they do. And so I just think that it was something that was needed in the crypto world to find what you're looking for. It's okay having your crypto and holding on to it and just not really having anything to do with it. So I wanted to bring something that was going to allow people to research and do it without interference from the government and everything else. So that was the premise behind it. And then I started to think to myself, okay, so we've got Bitcoin Cash. I'll create a directory just for Bitcoin Cash. But the issue is do we want to create an echo chamber where it's only Bitcoin Cash and only people who are interested in Bitcoin Cash can find out where to spend Bitcoin Cash? Well, not really, because what we want is we want people from other corners of the cryptosphere to come in and say, okay, so I can look for the things that I have, but then also on the side of this little discovery, they start to see Bitcoin Cash, they start to experience it, they start to see that there's a lot of adoption in this area or in that area. So they might be more inclined to have a little play with it and kind of see what they can do. So I'm going to have a lot of features on there also that are going to be focused on kind of trying to hijack people subliminally about Bitcoin Cash. I mean, the as you can see from the screenshot, the color scheme is very much Bitcoin Cash, a bit of agorism in there as well, so blacks and grays and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's just to say, kind of, we're not, a lot of the other coins, in my opinion, block out all the other projects and say, kind of put their fence around themselves and say, this is our project, we're not interested in anybody else. But I think that there needs to be more of, well, no, come in, take a look. Kind of, nobody's forcing you. Come in, take a look at Bitcoin Cash, see what it's doing, have a look at the blog. So I'm going to have kind of guest bloggers as well, posting mainly about Bitcoin Cash, some about agorism, and then kind of introduce people that way. And so the hope is that people will come in, maybe find a couple of merchants that use something else, maybe accept Bitcoin or Doge or whatever else, and then realize that when they try and spend it, that they're getting screwed and having to spend exorbitant fees and everything else. And then maybe they'll give Bitcoin Cash a try and realize that it's the real deal. But it's just about facilitating the same way, technically, having multi-chain bridges and things like that. You need to be bridging all the different users as well, the non-technical people who just want to use their cryptocurrency. So that's the premise behind it, really. Bringing a free market directory and people can buy, sell. So you'll be able to put your businesses up there. That was another kind of part of my thinking, was that I'd seen a lot of people online on Twitter saying that they're selling T-shirts, or they're selling this, or they're selling that, or they have a coffee shop. I think Mark Falzone's going to open a new coffee shop. So if you've got all of these people who want to be accepting Bitcoin Cash, then let's give them a place to advertise it and to showcase what they're doing, really. Because I know that there's map.bitcoin.com, but that's kind of, it's almost like a yellow page. Is kind of it just gives you a link to their website and a few details. But this is going to be more of a social media experience. Let people really get involved and really get contacting each other and seeing what everybody's doing.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask about, because that is obviously the sort of existing, solution in this space, is that bitcoin.com map. And the sort of upside of it is that it's kind of integrated into their wallet. So on one hand, it does kind of tie things together like that too. But on the other hand, I also don't think it isn't knocking it out of the park, basically. I mean, I don't want to knock their product. They've done a better map than I've done, right? So I'm not going to say I could necessarily do it better, but I think the room is there, because people often have frustrations about it, because the listings, I think, not only are they fairly minimal to begin with, but they're also not updated. So if somebody might update, I'm going to be using Bitcoin Cash, or somebody who is not the actual business owner themselves creates a listing because they've convinced the owner to accept Bitcoin Cash, then they move away, and then that person stops accepting it, or they forget about it, or whatever. And then somebody else comes on and gets real hype. I'm going to go here and spam Bitcoin Cash. And then they show up and they discover, wait, it's the business is shut down or relocated or whatever, and things are out of date. And then that's where the kind of the frustration and the pain point comes in for the user, even after you've been bought into this quite complicated idea, right? So what's your game plan for avoiding that?
You mean businesses that come and go, you mean?
Well, yeah, just keeping all the listings up to date, because I assume you're not going to be managing every single one. You're going to try and encourage the businesses themselves to take responsibility for, this is my listing, here's all my details. I'm, keeping up to date with, these are the cryptos I accept, like, here's how you contact me, etc. Like, you're not going to be able to manage thousands of these postings yourself, right?
No, that's right. So the business owner can claim the business listing, and add their own business listings, and then normal users can update also the cryptocurrencies that are accepted in that business. So if a business then turns around and doesn't, they go in and say, right, I want to use my Bitcoin Cash, and they say, oh no, sorry, we don't use it. Then they can go on then and they can kind of update, and then that will come through, and then I'll either accept it or not, or check it out myself if I need to. But yeah, it's a user experience so that we can keep on top of, like, as you say, the current standing of each business, really. So it is going to be a community involvement as well with that. Also, as far as onboarding, especially in countries, the developing countries, the idea will be to offer commissions as well to onboard new businesses. So we need to continue giving incentives, making sure that people have a reason to go and push onboarding people. So, and then I guess with that, businesses won't take it up because there will be a fee eventually. Once it's launched, it'll all be free, and then it's free. It's a lifetime listing, and then the business is listed for lifetime. But there will be a fee after a few months. It'll only be a nominal fee, very, very low. But then people will get a commission for onboarding people through their kind of affiliate links and things like that. So the idea at the start is just to get as many businesses on there as possible, accurate businesses, and see where we go from there, really.
Yeah, sounds like a great idea, and I definitely think Jet's going to come in here in a sec. But firstly, I'm going to just suggest, maybe what you should do as well, because just like everything else, the hardest part is going to be starting because of the network effect, right? So I think one thing that you could do is definitely get in touch with some of the people in St. Kitts and Nevis, some of the people in the Townsville in Australia, and some of the people in Venezuela that you're kind of talking about, or in Colombia. Who are already doing it, if they would like this kind of service, and they already know, we've already got 20 merchants or whatever, and then they put that on the site, and then it starts to build traction that way. So Jet, were you going to jump in there?
Yeah, so I do 100% agree that the maps.bitcoin.com really struggles with keeping up to date. I think that's the biggest issue that it has. I did notice, I think this was a recent update, they do have a search section now, and they do have, you can search for BTC, BCH, or Ethereum, and then they also have categories. So shopping, bar, souvenirs, restaurants, liquor, groceries and farmers markets. So I'm super kind of pumped to see, like, this idea isn't just, I'd like to see more of this, because the directories, I think, really just need some modernization. But the second thing, I didn't even notice this. I went to the St. Kitts here, and they have roughly 110 very visible businesses. And for a country smaller than the city, or as population goes, smaller than my current city, like, that's awesome. I'm going to take a little visit, I think.
Well, back into meat space this year, mate.
Yeah.
That was the resolution, right? And exactly. It's gonna, well, I think apparently now, I think it might even be more than like 150 or 200. I don't even know how many businesses there are in St. Kitts, but
well, yeah,
might be
like
nearly all of them.
just keeping in line with everything needs to be up to date. Like, maybe this hasn't been updated in 2 weeks, right? So, and it was also kind of a pain to find in the wallet. So, I don't know. I think if you get, like, the user experience down, like, this can easily, like, skyrocket past the others.
Yeah,
I do think it's needed. Yeah, I think it's needed at the moment for people to discover, to go and explore and discover what is out there.
Yeah.
And I just think that kind of merchants are going to decide what they're going to accept, which cryptocurrencies they're going to accept. But as in any competition or any market, the best one will win out eventually. You can't win in a market by blocking all the other projects out and kind of not allowing them to choose what they want to do. So it's about letting people decide what they want to do, but then recognizing what BCH can do for them, really.
Yeah, I do. I love this. I think, it's definitely as well. I also like, it's kind of picking the hard road, but the focus on the physical element to it. And I think that's something as well that BCH has historically, kind of battled away at. I'm not going to say in vain, but, it's part of the reason it struggled is because it's a small community, and it's also a small community that takes the hard road wherever possible, right? Like, it's willing to put in the extra work to get it done properly. If that means every single person has to be educated, here's the history of what went on and that's worth it. That's the way we're going to do it. Or if we're going to onboard merchants one at a time in meat space rather than trying to do some big online promotion that could just go out to a million people, well, that's the way we're going to do it. Because at the end of the day, I mean, online stuff has reach and everything, but I do feel that's a huge differentiator for BCH. And in the next couple of years is real stuff connects with people. I just personally think that myself, right? Like, everybody knows there's a lot of garbage online, but if you talk to people at real meetups, or you see a physical merchant, you see somebody pay with cryptocurrency in front of you at the shop, that's going to make an impact. That's going to be something that somebody's going to be thinking about, for the rest of the day, or like, wow, cryptocurrency is really happening, versus you can see the 1,000th online Twitter post that NFTs are the biggest thing in the world, but you can just kind of ignore it, right? It's not getting in your field of vision when you're in the world. A lot of that metaverse stuff, it's still kind of similar, I think. So I really like, if you can get it right, for sure, this could have a huge impact with people's face to face. And that's also where BCH does tend to thrive, because it does take more explanation, but face to face, people are more willing to listen. And then the ease of use also really shines through, because people understand the concept of trading when it's you there and they hand you the thing and you send them some BCH. That's it, they got it. Versus like some other, this is this online casino that you can speculate about. Like, trying to explain that to somebody in person, they're just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's seeing the videos that Mark's done over in St. Kitts have just been brilliant. Just people saying, is that it? Is that all there is to it? Yep, that's it. You've got the money, that's it. Like, yeah, that's the amazing thing. And I think that's why it's exploding in St. Kitts with so many merchants now, because I guess there's like a critical mass when so many businesses are offering to accept Bitcoin Cash. Then the ones who aren't say, well, I'm missing out on something now. So then that's when it kind of snowballs then. And that's what we want to get to, is in as many places as possible, obviously.
Exactly. And that's, there's a great moment in one of his videos where he goes, pays in with BCH with all these, but then he walks outside and he says, does anybody take BCH for taxis? And there's these 3 or 4 guys sitting around who are taxi drivers, like they often have in these sort of situations. And there's one guy's like, it's me. And he says instantly, like, I'm going with you. And the other 2 guys are just sitting there like, like, if you're those other 2 guys, bam, you just saw it. You just lost a customer right there because it wasn't you. And when that guy, that guy is just going to, he's probably not going to be the only one accepting Bitcoin Cash. The second time someone comes up to walk, all 3 of them are going to say, yeah, it's me. I accept Bitcoin Cash, That's it. So yeah, it's beautiful to see. Right. Okay. So moving on then, we've got meme of the week. Number 1. So usually on every week on the show, we have meme of the week, but I thought, let's mix it up a bit. There's been a lot of stuff going on this week, and some that sort of relate into, they're not even all technically memes, but it sort of relates into different themes of what's kind of going on in the world and in the scene at the moment. So I thought, let's just work through a few of these different ones and see kind of what we can glean from them. So it's a bit of a hybrid of like, funny memes / serious discussion points. So the first one comes from Nobody Knows on Reddit. He's got, troll army has been assigned a new phrase to spread around, now more projecty than ever. And it's these 2 quotes that somebody's posting on Reddit. JCT196 says, give it up, BCH is a dead project. And Sobuti also says, why BCH is crap, a dead project going nowhere. And this is specific to the Reddit /r/BTC, but it's also kind of touches on what we were talking about before, that the branding of BCH not only is more complicated than any other coin, because so much of it is wrapped up in the history and the white paper and what happened with the fork and all that. But on the other hand, BCH also just clearly, quite obviously, has like paid bots and shills and stuff that go around and spread disinformation about it. And it's a known thing in the community. And this is the latest version of it. This phrase, apparently dead project, has been assigned to be the talking point. And I can't remember what but there's been waves of this. It's a different phrase or a different slogan or whatever every single time. But if you been following the scene as long as me, you've seen this happen over and over and over again. And this kind of there's both censorship of people getting banned and stuff from our Bitcoin from talking about BTC, and then there's the opposite, which is the uncensored stuff is also added a lot of noise to kind of muddy up the signal. But it is kind of funny because, again, that's where real adoption just trumps any of this bullshit, because anybody in St. Kitts is not going to be caring about somebody on a forum saying it's a dead project, man, just give it up. Like, it's not going to happen, right?
You can't, for me, you can't tell people, you don't tell people when they've lost. So it's, you can't tell people that they've lost a war. You can't, they have to kind of hold their hands up and say, okay, it's over, kind of thing. As soon as you start saying that somebody's a loser or somebody's, then that's cope. That's you kind of, as you said, that's projection. It's you kind of panicking yourself and trying to point out other people's failings. It just doesn't wash. And I think BCH is it's a more mature community. So the people involved in it see these comments, and it kind of, they can see what it is. They see it for what it is. So it's a good, for me, it's a good sign. To be honest.
Yeah, I agree. This fact that this is coming up now, it's whenever the community starts getting momentum, that's when the knob gets cranked up on the trolling. And it's a classic trying to tell, you're right, if you're trying to tell something, you must believe that you lost, like, and the whole war really of BTC versus BCH, or it's a dead project, like, it's just ludicrous. Like, if you can't tell somebody that the project is dead. If they're loving it, they're loving it. They're not going to care what you think. They have to decide for themselves that it's dead. And if it was dead, you wouldn't be here to tell them it was so shit. It'd be like one of the other 20,000 coins where nobody is on their forum at all because it is dead, Yeah. So it's just
it's a parallel, isn't it, with this thing, I don't know if you saw that Justin Trudeau said about this massive
the fringe minority.
Yeah, the fringe. It's exactly the same. It's a fringe minority, and you're like, dude, I can see it with my own eyes. You do realize that, right?
until they rock up, they were a fringe minority until he needed to go into hiding because there was security concerns about how they was going to get wrecked with so many people just swamping all over him.
Yeah.
Just real quick too, he had a COVID exposure, so he should be self-isolating instead of fucking leaving wherever the hell he is, security concern or not. Anyway, I like the Coward 19 meme that's come out from it.
Yeah.
Coward 19, I hadn't heard that one, but yeah, that's a classic, running for cover, just getting. And there was even I saw, like, there's a clip from The Simpsons in 1999 of Homer Simpson being like, oh, we've got a trucker convoy and we're coming for the politicians, and the politicians be like, shit, I'm bailing out of the window, and it's just art predicting reality yet again, right? So yeah, that was the first one. Was sort of, there's kind of a little bit of a theme to some of these memes. So that's the first one, is about censorship or disinformation being slandered onto BCH. So the second one is not even related to cryptocurrency at all, but I couldn't let this one go. It's from the Wall Street Journal. Spotify takes down Neil Young's music after his Joe Rogan ultimatum. So folk rockstar had over 6 million monthly listeners on the service, which he blames for spreading fake information about the vaccines, right? So obviously, for the sake of YouTube, I don't really want to go all too deep on the whole coronavirus angle, but it is essentially this story where Joe Rogan has obviously been discussing that on his podcast, and, having very reasonable discussion. Anybody can go and listen and decide for themselves. And some people who disagree or just hate Joe Rogan have decided that this just cannot stand. People are not allowed to have a podcast of 2.5 hours of reasonable discussion. And so Neil Young decided he would lead the charge by announcing to Spotify, giving them an ultimatum: either you take my music off your platform, or you take down the Joe Rogan platform. Like, you have to pick, he got his lawyers and whatever, just take down my music unless you'll take down Joe Rogan. And so Spotify, of course, looked at it and thought, okay, well, you've got 6 million monthly listeners on the service. Joe Rogan gets 11 million or more per episode, and we paid him $100 million to go exclusively on our service. So I'm sorry, Neil Young, like, maybe if you were a bigger hitter. Maybe if it was, I saw somebody saying like, oh, Taylor Swift should get involved. She should do the same thing. It's like, well, maybe she doesn't feel any need to deplatform herself or be out hating on Joe Rogan. But even if you set that aside, it's just like there's always a bigger fish, right? And Neil Young just hasn't realized that Joe is a much, much bigger fish than him. And it kind of comes in this context of YouTube sort of banning clips of Joe Rogan and, you know, different media outlets like refusing to give coverage to this story or to, you know, putting up edited clips and things like that. And it is just, and the moment we're just in this big war of information, you know, and censorship, both inside cryptocurrency as we saw, but in the broader world overall. And yeah, I just thought this was a classic. Neil Young just hoisting himself on his own sword here.
Strange times, isn't it? When did we get to this stage where in the world where people can't just allow somebody to have a conversation with anybody? Like, it doesn't matter. It might be the most hateful person in the world, but allow that conversation to happen so that people can see those conversations happening. I mean, Joe Rogan's the furthest away from being a hateful person and that sort of thing. But even the people who are really bad, like, let them have their platform. Let them say what they want to say. It's like I always say that if you're walking through the jungle, you want to see the tiger that's stalking you. You want to see you don't. The worst thing is to have hateful people or people who are dangerous and you not know what they're thinking. You want to know what they're thinking. So I don't get this. So it can't be for that. So the reality is that it can't be because you're worried about them being dangerous in this context. It's because you're worried that they're going to shine a spotlight on what you're doing, and people are going to kind of realize that what your game is and what you're trying to do. So yeah, it's weird. It's weird, isn't it? It's very strange because it does feel very, I don't know if I can say this on here, but it does feel very CCP, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Very Chinese Communist Party. It does
Yeah.
feel like that kind of, but it just feels like it's spread around the world. Maybe they've looked at that and said, actually, this is a better way to run things. If we just we control the narrative, kind of, it's difficult to see.
And with censorship as well, like a lot of people just who don't understand, you know, sort of the full ramifications, or maybe they're less sort of, you know, free speech kind of oriented as the three of us, you know, might be in this, you know, particular discussion. But what you need to consider is that it's not really about Joe Rogan in the specific case, because if you set the precedent, as many places are starting to do, that, you know, if some information is to be destroyed or to be not allowed to be promulgated, or, you know, whatever, then inevitably that's going to spread onto other things. And then it also creates an atmosphere of fear in the minds of people who might want to speak up when they see, you know, something going wrong, when they have an important message or whatever. If they want to spread that message, if it's like, oh, I know that I'm going to be the first one that the hammer comes down onto, it, you know, it is a bit of a self-reinforcing cycle, which is very, you know, obvious, I would think, but apparently some people disagree that in a, you know, a healthy, free society, you need to have free speech. And it's just, it just kind of ties in a lot to the whole cryptocurrency narrative, because that was the point of Bitcoin fundamentally, is censorship-free money. Nobody is in charge. Nobody can ban or stop or take anyone off Bitcoin. You just cannot fundamentally do it. And in the last, incredibly, it's worked as well too. Like in the last 13 years, nobody's found a way to stop anybody else really getting any Bitcoin. I mean, there's been suggestions and, you know, stuff about, there was concerns about like blacklisting coins for a while, and different services, you know, not accepting some coins that had been provably used in hacks, or like all different stuff like that, right? But at the end of the day, especially in BCH, but in crypto overall, there's just too many coins. There's too many ways to swap coins onto other coins, or mix them around, move them onto a different chain, trade them peer to peer, like for cash or whatever. That it just hasn't happened, and it's leading the charge increasingly, I would say, the whole cryptocurrency scene as the beacon of like, you know, free speech and like we're talking about before, kind of grassroots, bottom up, culture.
Yeah.
All right, so we got the next one here. Meme of the week 3 comes from NeonDaThal. So this is a bit of a weird one, but I wanted to mix it in here.
This guy's a new content creator, right? I can see he's wearing his cap backwards and his shades. And who is this guy?
top influencer. Yeah. This is for people who don't know. Yeah, this is the president / as he calls himself, the CEO of El Salvador, which is a very interesting thing that he's branding himself as, because I guess while he thinks it kind of makes him hip and cool, like as if he was Jack Dorsey or like Elon Musk, it's kind of a weird, I'm sure this is not exactly the right term, but it's almost like a stolen valor kind of thing, because the point of being a president of a country is that you were elected, right? The sort of the status and stuff associated with it comes from, the people generally, or the political system of your country came to the conclusion that you could kind of be in charge for a limited amount of time, whatever. But being a CEO and a CEO and a president are very, very different, because a CEO has a lot, well, particularly in the case of somebody like Elon Musk or whatever, a CEO can have a lot more control, right? They're a lot more in charge to just, okay, we're doing this, and then that's what everybody's got to, do it the way I want to do it. But the balancing factor, the reason you have so much more control is because you built it all yourself. If you're the president, you're coming in, the country's already doing whatever it's doing, and you kind of get, not really undeservedly, but you get put in charge of a lot of stuff that you had nothing to do with creating. And being a CEO, especially if you found a company, or you're heavily involved in the early days or whatever, then you're in charge, and you do just get to be in charge because either you or the people who originally were in charge have decided, fine, it's all the power is kind of in your hands, right? So anyway, Nayib Bukele is the president / CEO of El Salvador with his authoritarian regime. He also loves a bit of Twitter shit posting. So he said, most people go in when the price is up, but the safest and most profitable moment to buy is when the price is down. It's not rocket science, shrugging emoji. So invest a piece of your McDonald's paycheck in Bitcoin. Now go back to flip more burgers, you lazy fuck, which he has spelt with a V instead of a U, and a C with, what's the name of this? It's called a Cyril or can't remember what the name of it is, but the little dot kind of thing that French people sometimes put on the bottom of a C. I can't remember the specific name for it, but anyway, he's put that on the C. So it's almost like this weird, I don't know why he didn't just type fuck. He put a bit of weird semi-self-censorship kind of going on.
I think it's a little bit because of Twitter censors, isn't it? If people start reporting his tweet, I don't know if he's just trying to get around that. I don't know.
Okay, well, I guess maybe, as far as I know, you can just swear on Twitter, like it's no problem. But maybe, I guess he's got enough reach that 20,000 people would, report it to Twitter, and it would become a problem for him. I don't know. But it's just this, so this is in the vein of the price crashing off a little bit recently, and Nayib Bukele, who is somehow in this position where he's tweeting live on Twitter regularly about, oh, I just bought some Bitcoin, or hey guys, I just took a bunch of my country's money and put it into Bitcoin, like, or he's like tweeted, it's like him, in his bedroom or whatever, like, oh, just bought 20 mil of Bitcoin, like, thanks people of El Salvador, I love speculating in the crypto casino with all the crypto bros. It's this most ridiculous situation, and in this case he's kind of it's a bit of a two-way stab, because the crypto critic angle is often like, haha, when the price of cryptos goes down, haha, you're all worthless now, and you should all go work at McDonald's to make back your money, which is kind of playing off the people who go, oh, I lost all my money, blah blah, all that bear market stuff we talked about last week. But of course, like all jokes do, it has come a bit full circle where the crypto people themselves, as the price is going down, will be like posting up like, oh, I'm off to get my job at McDonald's and like whatever, you know. And there's actually one of the best ones so far, I got to say, has been from Michael Saylor, who posted a picture. He did actually work at McDonald's in the early 90s, and he has a photo of him in his like McDonald's manager outfit. And
I didn't realize that was a real thing. I saw the picture, but I didn't know. I thought it was a Photoshop.
Like Photoshop. No, I think it's real, you know. And so that was just like that was the biggest, you know, clap back. Like for all Michael Saylor's faults, you got to give him props on that one. That was a good one. And so yeah, this kind of just buy into, you know, Bitcoin with your money and be burger flipping. And it's just such a weird contrast because Nayib Bukele doesn't need to be out flipping burgers. He's probably never flipped, you know, burgers in his life, right? Whereas somebody like Michael Saylor or maybe like Elon Musk or something, probably conceivably at one point in their life, that's where they were. And they do. So then if they have made it up out of that situation, they can there can be a bit of, you know, self-referential like humor in there. But Nayib Bukele has not been in that situation. Not as far as I know. So it's kind of weird that he would be like, haha, I'm one of the cool kids making all these jokes about McDonald's, not really understanding that a lot of people are in a rough situation and that's their last resort. And, you know, you can kind of make fun of it if you've been there or if you're a more positive person. But when you're, you know, autocratically in charge, and it's kind of a bit different, you know?
See, that's one of the things that makes me wonder is he under direction from other people? Because that's who he's talking to. He's not talking to the people of El Salvador. He's talking to the Bitcoin kind of BTC community as a whole. But also, I do believe that there's some involvement from the global elite that are trying a little experiment there. But I just think, at a standpoint as a president, it's just such a bizarre kind of position to take. And as you say, talking to your people who are supposedly elected you democratically and saying, I'm using your tax money to go and, as you say, go and bet on whether speculate that Bitcoin's going to go up. And it's just a strange thing, because if I'm in El Salvador and I've got myself a small restaurant business and I'm paying my tax each month, like what? I don't want to see that. I want to see you fix the roads. I don't want to see you go and put it into Bitcoin. It's such a bizarre thing, really is. And then the CEO thing as well. Another point about that is, so who are the employees? So a CEO gives direction to the company and to the employees, whereas the head of a state should be taking direction from the people. And this is a role reversal, and it's just a bizarre situation. It's just really strange.
And it's just, yeah, I just find it so interesting that he obviously clearly he wants to be one of the cool kids, and like Elon Musk, or even like any of the Bitcoiners like Michael Saylor, or like, you know, whoever else who's kind of making those. It's almost like he sort of wishes that he had been, you know, born somebody else and that he had then made it up to that situation. Like maybe there's an element to his psychology of like, oh, you know, I didn't deserve this, right? Like I didn't actually earn it, and he kind of on some level knows that. But one thing I also wanted to mention on this point too, one of the reasons I put it on was because the cracks are starting to emerge a little bit within the BTC scene themselves. I was listening to one of Peter McCormack's podcasts recently. He does regular ones with Lynn Alden. Despite how much I think Peter McCormack is wrong about a lot of things in Bitcoin, that's something I recommend people check out, is the podcast he does with Lynn Alden. She does great sort of macroeconomic kind of focus, which is ironic because they miss the whole bottom-up aspect of Bitcoin. But he was talking about, he's had like a 5-minute segment or something where I've never heard him say anything like this before, because he's been cheerleading on this whole El Salvador thing the whole time, even to the point of getting involved with Mark Falzon and saying, you're, you know, incorrect. Like, look, we're spending Bitcoin everywhere. And Mark's like, no, I'm actually there. And no, I'm not. And there's protests. And they've had their own back and forth. But he started to say, like, I'm starting to wonder about this whole El Salvador thing. You know, we maybe I should have got the clip so that we could put it up. But he was saying like, oh yeah, the more I think about it, and he's on Twitter and he's talking to us about going back to McDonald's, and he really wants to be one of us, and I love that he's kind of part of the community, jokes in that way. But also there's been some problems in his country, and what if this whole Bitcoin thing doesn't work out? And those doubts were sort of starting to creep in a little bit to the BTC community, so they have constantly sort of making their beds, and then when they end up lying in it, maybe initially it all seems like fun and games, but as time ticks on, if you have cracks in your system, especially in a decentralized system, those are going to come back to bite. I
mean, El Salvador's a real kind of, again, I can't think of a different word, but a real grassroots country. The people there are real salt of the earth. They grind every day for their bread and everything else. So if and when that does collapse, it's gonna collapse spectacularly. I mean, they're not averse to revolution, and there's been revolutions there in recent times. So it's kind of, I mean, it's a dangerous game for him to play. And is it going to lead to suffering for people there eventually? I mean, will he do crap? I mean, he went into his his Parliament building, didn't he, with armed guards and kind of forced through some legislation or something at the point of a gun. So what else is he kind of open to doing? So it's something. It's concerning on a human level. It's very concerning. But I think another point to make is if you compare him to some of the other leaders, there's very similar leaders on a world stage now. If you go to Trudeau, Macron in France, who's the woman in New Zealand, Ardern. If you look at all of these, they're almost like kind of actors. They're very flamboyant, very charming, they like to play the game. They like to use the buzzwords. So it's almost like they've been.
Trudeau was a drama teacher,
before, exactly,
right? That definitely fits.
Yeah. So I mean, is that what it is? Is that the thing now? Are they being put in place because they've got this particular skill of talking to the camera and or posting on Twitter in the case of this guy? So it's we're living in a kind of unprecedented times at the moment.
Yeah, and I think, just one final point to wrap this all up is, when there is some sort of collapse and problems with BTC, or, a bunch of people get basically scammed by their own government, whatever, I think it's just going to play into it's just going to sharpen the divide here, which is people who want to hate on crypto, that will be a great excuse for look at how much of a disaster it was. But at the same time, the people hopefully who are listening to this show or have their understand what's going on, will need to understand that the problem was because it was implemented in a top-down way, which is the whole anti-point of crypto. And if it had been done in a bottom-up way, if every single El Salvadorian was holding their own private keys, the situation would be incredibly different to how it is at the moment, where they can all end up scammed. So anyway, we'll see how that all works out. But that's just that's something I can see on the horizon, definitely. Okay, so we got meme of the week 4. This one comes from at Naomi Matthew on Twitter, who I do recommend to anybody in the Bitcoin Cash scene. She's kind of a very unique sort of libertarian takes. Her following's actually been building up quite a lot. I didn't realize she used to have a much smaller account, but I think she now has 14,000 followers or something like that. But anyway, she posts a lot of this stuff that's in the sort of libertarian, anarchist type of vibe against the government. I think she lives in Texas. But yeah, a lot of her content's pretty great. So people can check that out if they're interested. But in this case, the tweet it comes from disclose.tv, January the 27th. They said, just in, Biden admin is preparing executive action to regulate digital assets such as Bitcoin as a matter of national security, Barron's reports. And she's quote tweeted that with the simple rebuttal of fuck off. And when I saw this, I had to include this in this show this week because when you're browsing Twitter, you're like, oh, sometimes that's funny. But this one, I actually just laughed out loud. I thought this was hilarious. And it just sums up a lot of it, which is that crypto is now big enough that it's really, really unignorable, right? It's the Joe Biden and his administration are sort of starting to say something about crypto. We did just have a whole round of battles in the US Parliament and stuff over these crypto regulations, but apparently that wasn't enough, because now they're back in action with some executive actions to try and push things in one direction or another. But really the point is that crypto just marches on. It doesn't care. I mean, whatever the US government is doing, and obviously that does trickle out to all the different merchants and individuals and, you know, in various things. But St. Kitts is not going to care what's going on in the US. And while the US, you can also say, might be setting the standard or whatever for other countries around the world, there's also a certain extent that they're not, that whatever they do, some countries just aren't going to care. And a lot of people at the grassroots level are not going to care in reality. You know, what they care about more is the fees and the other, you know, usability and the brand and other stuff that we've already talked about, right? So that was all kind of going on. And then her response, I thought, was just pitch perfect, because crypto never wanted the government to be involved. I mean, they're finding their way into it because it's getting too big to ignore, and the economic incentives draw everyone in, including the government eventually. But if, you know, we had it the crypto way, the way it started was, we're just going to do it our own way and like, screw you guys. And that all ended, well, it didn't end, but that famously led up to Mt. Gox being a huge disaster and everybody laughing, haha, this is what happens when you don't have the government involved and consumers aren't protected and whatever. But the free market did somewhat fix that problem. It came up with a lot more solutions. The Bitcoin community didn't die. The Bitcoin blockchain didn't stop. Everything, you know, kept kind of, it's like, I always think of like crashing through. It's like some kind of a rhino that is just plowing through like wall after wall after wall. There's a lot of rubble that gets left along the way, but on the other hand, it just keeps moving forward and it doesn't care. And so, of course, the government's going to get involved, but the only reason they're getting involved now is because it's succeeding. Once left on it to its own devices, it just gets better and better and better. I mean, there's a lot of collateral damage, but it does work. So I think she's just kind of hit the nail on the head there, that the best thing they could do from our point of view is just go away. Of course, from their point of view, they're not going to do that. And it's really just a question of how bad the imposition ends up being. But you know, that's really it. Like it's like a kid with a toy or something like that. It's like, we had the toy and nobody wanted it, but then our toy was awesome and suddenly all the other kids want to come and play with our toy, even though, you know, before it was cool, they didn't care. So it made me laugh. It was perfect.
I mean, the thing is it's just perfect. You just brushed it off. What I like as well is it's just brushing off the concept that could even be a thing. It's just, yeah, fuck off. It's just, that's it. Like, it's not even a consideration. But from kind of the global banking cartel's point of view, they can't allow for crypto to happen now, because once it does happen, it means the end of their financial system, and the end of their financial system means the end of governance as they have always controlled it. So it's going to be interesting what happens moving forward. I like, because I do think they'll try everything to kind of ruin, and that brings us on to Bitcoin itself and the shackles that have been placed on Bitcoin. I'm sure that the global banking cartel have done that or had a hand in that. But so I like to play with the idea of what would I do if I was the global banking system? What would I do? How would I? So I like to approach it from the reverse almost. How would I stop crypto? And so, I mean, I don't know what you think how that would happen, but some of the areas that I've thought about is maybe that's what these digital social credit passports were all about, that they've tried to bring in, that seems to hopefully be kind of collapsing a little bit now. Or could it be something else where they will try and control people's mobile devices? Will they try and control internet access via providers? Will they regulate centralized exchanges? Where will they try and throttle that freedom? I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things, I think, and one of the things that people truly undervalue, not hardcore the Bitcoin Cash community, but almost everyone else, including most of the crypto scene, is how unbelievably resilient Bitcoin is. Like Satoshi just had every angle covered pretty much. Like, okay, it hasn't taken over the world yet, but it's still putting up a bloody good like fight. And the most vulnerable point was at the smallest points, right? As time goes on, it actually grows in strength rather than it doesn't, right? But just every aspect was just tuned up for like, this has to fly in the face of all adversity, literally against untold trillions of dollars of banking wealth, centuries of human organization and capital and government regulations and all of that stuff. It had to just fly the first time. I sort of think of it as, it's kind of like if Elon Musk said, we're going to the moon, and then his first we're going to Mars, and then his first rocket that was it. He had one rocket launch. He didn't fuck up 5 times and then get one that was in orbit and then one that was halfway there and blah, blah, blah. Like Satoshi had one shot and like pretty much nailed it, right? Yeah. Got it right. So that everything about the system works. The limited, supply, the halving rate, the way that encourages people to bootstrap into an economy, and the way that draws more people in and draws more people in and draws more people in, and the way that printing fiat is not an answer, because the more you devalue your fiat, just the better it makes Bitcoin, and the way that government individuals are incentivized to be involved, just like non-government individuals are incentivized to be involved. And even just the fact that that it was open source, so everything is just completely transparent, which makes it trustworthy. And then the fact that it could be forked, the code could be forked, because as we've seen, if that hadn't been in there, or that wasn't an inherent property of the system, that also would have been a problem. So it makes me think back to when I first read about Bitcoin in 2013, when I read the white paper. I was pretty much like, wow, this is just going to take over. But I did spend part of the next couple of days very, very carefully. And I think a lot of people who were in Bitcoin at that time also did the same thing. I think now it's not really, it wouldn't occur to people as much. But if you were getting involved at that time, when this was kind of off the radar, it was pretty hardcore. There was no law about it. It was like, I've seen Mark Lamb talk about this kind of vibe that like we could all just go to jail. I wasn't particularly as worried about that, but there was sort of an element to it. There was no clarity around the tax situation, like all kinds of stuff, right? It was sort of conceivably, even by that point, it was probably too big for the government to attack it via like mining attacks and stuff like that. That's another incredible part to it, is that the mining industry got built up and flourished before anybody could do anything about it, and the economic incentives. But anyway, so I spent a couple of days thinking, what is the counterattack? What could take this out? And I concluded that there was nothing. But the only reason I concluded that was because it was an open source code base, and because I figured if they figured out a way to stop Bitcoin in some way, that somebody would just fork the code and make a different, more resilient version. And in the end, that's proven that's what's needed to happen, because Bitcoin was just dominating right up until the whole BTC BCH fork. And after that happened, that was when the market is now decentralized into all these currencies. Now it is pretty much like there's no stopping it, because there will be some coin somewhere that will come up with the answer, and they all copy off each other as well. So it's like mutating genetics. As soon as one of them figures out something, any of the others that it's proven success will start adopting it. So I think like a social, like a globally coordinated government ban could have done it. Now it's too late. But in the early days, something like that could have done it. Although even then, the Streisand effect would have just helped it kick off harder, probably. But I think, the final resilience of cryptocurrency is just the fact that it's open source. That was I knew back then, I was like, that's the saving great. So I hope it doesn't come down to that, but that is the nuclear option. That is the impenetrable shield, and that's ended up being what happened. Obviously, I also think, it seems like the whole fork, the censorship, the block size war, all of that was what was decided as this is how we're going to attack it. Right? There was a lot of smear campaigns around drugs and whatever. That didn't really that wasn't really that helpful. Actually, that just amplified it, spread it about a bit, and I'm sure that some of that was malicious and a lot of it was just incidental. It wasn't all kind of like planned or directed, but yeah, it was definitely the social attack capture of our Bitcoin, which was where 80-90% of the discussion was happening at that time. And yeah, BCH survived, so we're still here and we're still fighting. Thank God for open source.
I really think that we need more of this fuck off attitude. Like, we don't need to worry about what the regulators are doing, because what in the hell can they do short of sending their armed men, like, to throw you into a cage? And if they do that en masse, they're burying their own, or like they're digging their own grave. So I think she gets it. I'm actually super curious what coins she's into, because I quickly went and checked out her tweets, and she directly says, remind her to stop paying taxes. And then she retweeted another one like 4 hours ago. It's like, I don't know what the thing was, like, the hottest thing a man can do is XYZ, and she retweeted it with, no, it's stop paying taxes. So like, when I see someone with that we need to starve the state attitude, I think they're like, we need more vocal, like, yeah, fuck off, we're not working with you, we don't negotiate with terrorists.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. And I think that's something also that has been, it's a cultural split, yet again, between the BTC and the BCH side, because in the early days of Bitcoin, I would say that the majority of people were like this. They understood that the strength of Bitcoin is not compromising, right? Is it where, when you've got pocket aces, you should go all in and you shouldn't mess about. If you're messing about it, you're not playing your hand right? You've got to get all the money in and just play to win, right? When you've got a winning hand. But the BTC community, maybe some elements of them, or certainly the ones who came in later, did not understand that, and they still don't understand that. And that's why, well, that was the whole point of the fork, really, was that the BCH side was like, no, we have to preserve the ability that we're not gonna negotiate, we're just gonna do it our way. And the BTC side, it's even in the intro, that's why there is that clip from the Kim.com debate where the BTC maxi guy says, oh, and then Bitcoin Cash is more of a threat to the US dollar than Bitcoin is. And he says that, and he thinks he's saying that makes Bitcoin better because they've just spent 20 minutes arguing about how, oh, okay, well, we've co-opted the banks, they're on our side now, they're going to invest all their money, and then they're going to help, protect us against the regulators, and like all this other, this is complete garbage, when exactly the opposite is true. Like, Bitcoin just needs to just not care about anything, and Bitcoin needs to be Bitcoin. And if it just can focus on that mission, it can just bulldoze through anything. The way it gets, distracted or weighed down or death by 1,000 cuts is all this extraneous kind of stuff. So yeah, the Bitcoin Cash community, and we listen to this podcast, like just block out doubters, haters, regulators, fear of the government, getting involved or whatever. You just got to power forward. Like, that's the whole point of decentralization, right? If we've got enough people doing that, it will be overwhelming. And that's the point it is starting to get to, right? So the admins coming in to regulate it at the point where it's already at the strongest it's ever been. I think they're just definitely too late if they ever had a chance, really. So
it's the same.
Right.
It's kind of just one last point. It's a Western mindset of being served up a fantasy. So watching Netflix all day or whatever people do, it's been served up a fantasy instead of going out and living your life. Too many people now sit and watch TV and imagine that's them, or live out this fantasy. And it's the same with Bitcoin now. Is the fantasy is that you're going to get rich. So that's why people push it, even if they're just getting into it now. And and it's not going to make them incredibly wealthy now. It's just that fantasy. So they're all fantasies that are being served up, rather than wanting to be free of the state, free of coercion, free of all of these. That's the liberty mindset, and it's trying to educate people to that mindset that the state isn't the be all and end all for how you live your life. So
yeah, I saw again I didn't even watch this full episode, but I saw a little bit of what's the name, Peter McCormack talking to Balaji Srinivasan and Glenn Greenwald, who are both great. I think both of those guys, they're doing like great stuff in the world. But Glenn Greenwald sort of makes this point like, I know about Bitcoin and stuff, but I wasn't involved in Bitcoin for a long time because I think a lot of people were put off that it was really libertarian and really, doing its own thing. And a lot of people couldn't really tolerate that. And so they weren't involved or they didn't like it. And, now it's sort of becoming a bit more mainstream stuff. And like that was the exact opposite of the way it should be going, right? The point is that it is libertarian, it is anarcho-capitalist. It doesn't give you a choice. You're going to be involved now, or you're going to be involved later. If you don't like it, you're just going to have to learn those lessons like that. And that's, yeah, like I said, that's just Bitcoin Cash has pocket aces. It just needs to go all in. Like if anybody doesn't get it, you're gonna learn to love it, right? That's the way crypto always is. You don't like it now, well, you're gonna learn to love it because everybody else is, and you're gonna be the last one to the party if you don't. And I think that attitude, well, it's got us this far, but it's also gonna create a lot of change in the world because people who don't see the world that way, they're just confronted with the reality that, you can just watch your money keep bleeding away to nothing if you don't want to be involved. I mean, that's only going to be you eventually that has to click. Wait, what am I doing wrong here? How is everyone else getting ahead? All right, last meme of the week of our series of 5. So this one is the Canadian Gadsden flag. I put this on firstly because I wanted to mention the Canadian truckers and everything like that, but we've also had the Gadsden flag on this show before. It's the famous, well, I guess it's fairly famous, but it's the yellow and black flag of the American Civil War, right? Where with the snake on it, that's kind of like rearing up, and the text underneath is "Don't tread on me," and it's just kind of like, look, it's the anti-government kind of sentiment, and just sort of like, not like I'm going to attack you, but if you come and fuck with me, I'm going to fuck with you back, and that's exactly how snakes are. That's pro tip if you're in the Australian outback. Stomp, because you want the snake to know you're there. You don't want to come on the snake when it doesn't know you're there. That's when you're in trouble. But if the snake knows you're there, it'll be long gone before you have any problems with it. So anyway, survival advice to everyone. But they had that that was the original like flag, and then as part of this big Canadian truckers kind of grassroots protesting and stuff like this, I saw somebody had this flag which they've got on the back of their truck, and it's the yellow color, so it's obviously the same, play on the same thing, but it's like a goose, I guess. I don't know if there's a specific kind of Canadian.
Yeah, it's a Canada goose. It is.
Yeah,
it's like the national bird. Yeah.
So
the national bird.
We also call them cobra chickens. That's their other name.
Cobra chicken.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay, well that makes it even better then. That was a layer of reference that I hadn't caught, and the text, instead of "Don't tread on me," which is obviously a bit threatening, is "Please leave me alone." That's a bit more polite in the famous Canadian attitude of really saying please and sorry a bunch. So yeah, just seeing this, it just made me laugh, the way that there's so many good angles to this. Firstly, obviously, it's a very accurate transposition. There's kind of a cultural joke to it. There's also just a meta political commentary of the fact that this attitude, which is, rising in the US as a result of, the situation the world is in, is now maybe leaking into other countries where Canadians maybe would be a bit less kind of freedom and whatever, maybe now that's starting to seep into that culture because of the way the world is moving. I just thought, the Canadian truckers thing has just been tying back into the censorship angles that I was talking about before, how that's now blowing up and is starting to be a big story, but it's not kind of by choice, that the large media are starting to report on it. They weren't reporting on it when it was like it's starting, or even when like, holy shit, this is kicking off. It took another, 3 days before the reports started to kind of come out. So
my wild speculation for this is they needed those 3 days to prepare their infiltrators. They're going to turn this into Canadians January 6th, which is ridiculous, right? No one's trying to overthrow anything. We're trying to be left the fuck alone.
Yeah. And I'm sure there'll be, there's already, there's already like people who you can see these posts on Twitter or whatever who are like, look at who is this one guy with a really hateful like slogan or a, Nazi flag or something. It's him and one other guy who was there taking a picture of just him and nothing else. And then they're gone again. Like, what? And we've got a picture of him taking that picture. Like, what is going on here? Undoubtedly that kind of stuff is going to start surfacing as well too. So look forward to that. the narrative shift that will undoubtedly start. But reps out to all the Canadian truckers and everybody genuinely and honestly involved in that. Absolutely amazing to see. Right. So last slide then, message to the community. Like it says here, open platform to speak to the Bitcoin Cash community. Any thoughts, advice, feedback, criticism, encouragement, story, point of view, anything you feel should be more prominent or appreciated. What does the Bitcoin Cash community need to hear?
Well, I just think, or my question would be, is there another community other than Bitcoin Cash that gives the freedom tools that Bitcoin Cash does to real grassroots people around the world? And I don't know there is another project that does that welcomes in. When you look across social media and you see people in South Sudan, like you can see that they're beaming with happiness that they've been given this amazing tool that is making their lives better. And it's things like that gives me real hope that Bitcoin Cash can genuinely change the world. It's really beautiful to see, because it's not influencers on Twitter or on YouTube. It's real people. It's like that guy who posted, I think he posted on read.cash on Twitter that there was, I think it was Nigeria maybe, where there was a fire and he'd got a big water tanker with a big Bitcoin Cash sticker slapped on the side or on the back or whatever. And the local fire department didn't come to the call of the people who were saying these buildings are on fire. And him and his guys went out there with their water tanker and put the fire out, kind of putting themselves at risk and putting them through that ringer and everything else. But I mean, how amazing is that these people are finding a place in a community that's giving them purpose and making them do amazing things, really. So it really does. This is why I love Bitcoin Cash so much, and this is why I'm all in personally on Bitcoin Cash, and I'm sure that it's going to reach some real heights of freedom, really, for people. It's beautiful to see all the time. It's really, really nice.
Yeah, this is the revolution. I agree with you. I mean, I love a lot of things about Bitcoin Cash, but one of the most important parts is just the resilience of the community. That's where I think, the critical element comes from. There definitely are other communities that are trying to kind of get on a similar line, like Dash. We recently had Joel Valenzuela on. He's kind of, a lot in that similar mindset, the sort of Monero community, all that kind of stuff, right? But Bitcoin Cash has copped a lot of flack, and it's still here, and it's still fighting, and it's still very grassroots. And that's why, to me, if I thought there was another project, that could use my help better, I would go and do it. But I don't think it exists, and I think people can look around and decide for themselves as to, like, to me, the network effect is critical, and therefore you need to find the coin that has the best shot of getting to everyone in the world, and just all in on that. That's how I operate. And I think more and more people are starting to clue into that on the, for BCH, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think people talk about brand, and I'm not a big brand guy. I think that people who, if you're in Venezuela and you're in a tiny village that's doing a little bit of local transacting with Bitcoin Cash, I don't think brand's a massive advantage to you. But with the brand of when you're going to new places that haven't used kind of any cryptocurrency at all, to have Bitcoin, people say maybe it doesn't need Bitcoin in the name, but maybe that Bitcoin in the name and cash, two things that they will be familiar with or they will have heard of, gives them, versus Dash, for example, gives them that confidence that, oh, I've heard of that before. Whereas if it's something completely new, Dash or whatever, then there's that uncertainty still. So Bitcoin does have a name that lends itself to confidence, I guess, with Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah, I agree. I think I have on my site, bitcoincashpodcast.com/the FAQs, and if you have a look in there, there's one of the most read articles is about, will Bitcoin Cash rebrand, right? And the answer is no, because a lot of people, they have this, but Bitcoin Cash, it sounds like the knockoff Bitcoin and whatever. But I disagree with that. I love the branding. I think it's perfect. It's second only to having the actual Bitcoin branding, which we'll be able to get back once we flipping them and get them out of the way. But in the meantime, that is the second best possible branding that I think we could have. And the reason is, like you're saying about about cash, but for me also, so people who don't know anything about it, they have that element of Bitcoin and trust, and people say, oh, well, it's confusing. It is confusing, but that means you have to explain, and that people learn and they understand properly. And when they do, the funny thing is they'll trust Bitcoin Cash more than some other coin, because they've never even heard of that other coin. So you're starting from scratch with Bitcoin Cash. You can say, well, you know about Bitcoin and it's blah, 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 and you go on from there, right? But the other thing that I think so many people completely misunderstand about Bitcoin Cash is they think it's got the worst brand, which is that it's Bitcoin but not as good. And that's true until Bitcoin Cash starts to rise up, which it's slowly building momentum for. And then once it does that, if it starts rising, it goes from Bitcoin but not as good to super Bitcoin. It goes to, this is the unkillable, unstoppable, the most hardcore, never, ever, ever, ever going to give up Bitcoin, because the BTC community, they never got tested in that way. They were never, put irons to the fire kind of situation. But the BCH community has been through that, and everybody knows that. There's been everybody knows there's been years and years of, oh, you're a scam, you're a knockoff, who knows who you are, you don't have the brand, there's no network effect, blah, 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 blah. All that hatred pouring onto Bitcoin Cash, even to people who don't know anything else about it. And they just think, yeah, okay, screw this like crappy coin. If it starts rising up, if it starts ranking up on Coin Market Cap and it gets in the top, 8 or 7 or whatever, all those words are going to be ringing in people's ears. What the hell is this coin? Like, everybody hates it. Everybody else, all the, it was all negative, and everybody was like, and here it is still just crushing. And then once people start looking into it, they're like, holy crap, this is the truth. So the opposite, you get both sides of it. You get the Bitcoin is the fake Bitcoin initially, but that gives you the Bitcoin is the ultimate Bitcoin in reverse. You can't have one without the other. And I think that's so undervalued. Of course, we've seen no payoff for that. This is all going to happen in the future once the momentum starts. But I think with the SmartBCH and everything I cover on this show, I can see that drawing ever closer.
I have a slogan for the community that I would love to see propagate. Just smacked me in the noggin. Bitcoin will be cash.
I love it.
It'll get the maxis so angry. We can slap that everywhere. I actually love the Bcash name, to be honest. Like, because it's, well, what's Bitcoin Cash? It'll be cash. Like, so let's go for this double entendre. Bitcoin will be cash.
Okay, all right. So we've got I like the coin and Bitcoin will be. Maybe that can now be the counter troll, and so be cash. You say Bitcoin will be cash. Yeah, I can say. I actually don't like the Bcash thing, because I think it's a classic, another censorship type of thing. It's trying to obscure the history, because the BTC side, they know that there is so much power to that branding, to that story, to the history. And that's their attempt. It has been since the fork to try and, wash us out of there. And I love that the community it's like, it's a Schelling point. It's like the Spartans or the whatever. It's the point. It's the last stand. It's like, we are not going to break no matter what. And I love that element. So I think, the Bitcoin will be cash. Maybe we could get that in there. I like that. Bitcoin will be cash. All right. So that's that'll do it for the show. Thanks for coming on, man. And obviously we're taking donations like usual. Shout out to all the donators. Much appreciated. You can check out www.bitcoincashpodcast.com for the start guide. If you don't know anything about crypto, this is the first episode you've ever listened to, and you want to understand what the hell all this is going on. Obviously, we're way down the rabbit hole here. There's a load of links. Check out, Odyssey, Rumble, BitChute. Gonna have all the videos going up on there as well too. So get some of that decentralization in the content. There's a Telegram channel if you want to chat with me or other people that watch the show about whatever. And I'm going to give other chance to shout, but my shout out, it's definitely to the Canadian truckers. Freaking legendary. Like, you love to see it, just every aspect of that. And also to Joe Rogan, like, screw Neil Young, like, he's just crushing it. Joe, absolutely love it. All right, that's it from me. Any shout outs? Or where can people find you?
Well, I was just going to say, just shout out for what Mark Falzon's doing over in St Kitts. That's brilliant. Roger Ver as well, because he's been there for a while, I think. So just keep doing what you're doing, guys. It's brill. It's bringing a lot of spotlight over to Bitcoin Cash. And just if you want to come and follow me, NeonDaThal at any of the social medias. And and it's been great. Thank you very much, Jeremy. Thanks, Jet.
Jet, final shout out and thoughts this week. Give us a nice patriotic going out message, Pressure's on.
Sing the
I know
national
you are,
anthem.
but I mean, I don't know. I just felt like, you've been like, man, Canada's so wrecked. Like, we're going into lockdowns. There's a bit of hope though, isn't there?
So,
right?
Well, yeah, I would say the hope that, and like this just happened today. I was out, we had a snowstorm, right? An actual blizzard over the past couple of days. And I was out helping, unbury my neighbors. And no one, like, we are in a current lockdown, and no one was wearing a mask. No one even mentioned COVID. Everyone was just shoveling and pushing cars, like helping each other. And that felt like, man, it's been years since I could experience just that, like not hearing about this miserable thing. And people were like asking, like, hey, you need somewhere to be? Like, my car's up there, I'll help you. And that camaraderie of like real, I don't know, Canadian nicety, like it feels like it's been stripped away from us for like 2 years now, where people are like, oh, you're seeing your friend, I'm calling the cops. So yeah, if the tides are turning, I will very much welcome that, and I'm kind of optimistic for it. But we shall see, because I think people are still going to be grasping for power very soon.
Yeah, you can't speak too soon, but that's good. I'm glad to hear things are turning around on your front there too. So yeah, that'll do it for the show, everybody. Thanks for listening, and until next time.
Future dollars can buy nothing for